You are listening to Insights from the Conference Board.
Hello, my name is John Metzelaar, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Insights, a series which helps senior executives address challenges and stay informed about current issues before they hit the market. This series is brought to you by the Conference Board. Today, I will be sitting down with Christophe Perthuisot, who used to be CTO, Chief Research and Innovation Officer at the Danone Corporation. And we're going to go and talk a bit about dancing with the elephant. How do you go and create an agile organization for constructive disruption into the future? Christophe, welcome to this podcast. It's an absolute thrill to have you with us. Your track record is amazing. I know you're in transition to bigger and better things. So thank you for the time you take to be spending it with us. With that, I want to go and set you off and say, dancing with the elephant for constructive disruption. What's up with constructive disruption? How do you get there in today's complex VUCA world? And what do the elephants have to do with this?
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and part of this podcast. I guess the elephant is sometimes the way we tend to describe R&D. As a function that may be seen as not as agile as others. I choose the elephant also because I think it represents the good side of R&D, which is the strength of our knowledge and expertise that we have, and the wisdom that we often impart into companies. I guess the challenge nowadays is to take a function that is based on expertise and make it a lot more agile, because as we will see today, that's really the challenge for tomorrow in this VUCA world. How you make an R&D organization as agile as any other.
Yeah, it's critical that we are able to see around corners, as Rita McGrath so nicely put in her book. But how do you act around corners? I guess that's a challenge that you've lived at the company, and I'd love to hear your perspective on how have you gone about this successfully.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to talk about is the change that we see at the moment over the last few years, and has been accelerated recently, but has been around the corner for a while now, which is the incredible increase in complexity that we are facing, right? On one side, consumers are demanding better products. They're demanding faster innovation. They're asking for health and sustainability to be part of the experience we provide to them. And those changes are taking place very, very quickly. We can see it around the world, a bit on plastic, on climate, on the type of food people are wanting to eat. So we can see that change happening on one side, and that's accelerating, reducing actually the life cycle of products on one side. And on the other side, we see a fragmentation of knowledge. So there are many new technologies that are coming up in every industry, each of them having the potential to truly change the paradigm in which we operate. So the head of R&D as a leader is really challenged by this increasing complexity that's coming both from technology and consumer at the same time. And he's facing the difficult task of performing as always, so delivering the innovation project and transforming at the same time, so that you can continue to bring new innovation and new products to the table over the next years.
Now, my experience by talking to many innovation leaders like yourself is that most are comfortable with the performing part of perform and transform, but they're struggling with the transforming part. Have you observed something like that as well, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, it's often true, and in most of what I've observed, I think many R&D organization and leaders will spend about 80% of their resources on the performing part and 20 on the transforming. And I guess my challenge is to think about reversing that ratio over time and try to automatize a little bit the performing piece, so it only takes about 20% of the resources, and then put the real brain and capability onto the transformation side. But it's a challenging activity, and it requires some very fundamental transformation on the part of the processes in R&D.
No, it certainly is, is a provocative challenge as far as I'm concerned. The experience I have when I look at it broadly is most companies would already be happy with 20% focusing on transformation, and you are pushing that significantly harder. But I do sympathize with it because we are seeing indeed a world that is unprecedented. Some people keep challenging it. Are we really living in different times than we lived in the early 20th century when electricity popped and there were so many things that happened as well? But the complexity today, I have to accept and agree with you, is significantly higher. The consumer preferences are changing. Societal trends are developing really quickly. Industries are being blurred, right? I mean, you get new competitors coming into conventional industries like yours. And on top of that, you have all the technological progress that is sort of intersecting with that leads you to all these opportunities. And that's, I guess, where I want to take it next, which is, okay, with these opportunities, is it still good enough for you to serve consumers with products or even services, or do we need to go to the level of solutions? I guess the answer will be the latter. But then, how do you get to those solutions?
Yeah, it is the latter. So I guess nowadays, if you're only addressing a piece of the consumer pain point or a piece of the consumer journey, be it with product or services, you're making an incremental change only. And I guess, yeah, if we are in a disruption economy, so with many changes happening at the same time, we need disruptive innovation. And for that, I think we need to bring to the consumer and the customer what I call an ecosystem innovation. So a full set of solutions linked together that address all the pain points and all the needs on a specific topic at once. I can use an example on nutrition. If you're a consumer and you want to manage your health by managing your food intake, you will need basically you'll need a nutritionist in your pocket. So you'll need a system to measure what you eat, a system of sensors to observe how your health is going, so measure blood parameters, for example, and then that needs to be translated into recommendation and delivering the right product to your door as well. So you see that you need a full array of solutions to manage a single topic, and this is where we're going, I think, in the future. These ecosystem innovations, so bringing the full set of options to manage all the pain points of consumers at once.
Now, I hear other companies, corporations, talking about ecosystems. It's a bit of a buzzword these days, right? But I also hear that a lot of effort goes in, a lot of activity, a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of people. But where are the results? Where's the value that you extract? How have you experienced this and dealt with it?
Yeah, I guess that is one of the experience I've had on open innovation, and many colleagues that are heading R&D organizations have shared the same kind of challenge with me, in the sense that open innovation is very active. It's often easy to get plenty of good ideas. There are a lot of good people there out there with good ideas. It struggles to turn it into meaningful options for business solutions at the end of the day. And I think partly it's the diverging nature of the activity that is potentially a difficulty. So I guess one of the way I've seen that you can activate this better is to focus on one, two, three key topics, very defined. Now, in food, for example, it can be bio-based packaging, or it can be sweetness reduction, these kind of things, and make sure your organization and your program of open innovation is focused only on a few topics, and sort of refrain from diverging into every exciting idea that pops up, and there are plenty. So uh,
That's nice. That's nice. I like it. You define the arenas that you want your organization to play in and experiment in, right?
yeah,
And you create and you establish the boundaries so that you maintain focus while you have give them enough space, obviously. But you need to indeed avoid too wide creativity, I guess.
yeah, absolutely right. And I guess to the point of ecosystem innovation, it's better to focus the organization on bringing together a coalition of startups or partners from outside to solve one problem, rather than a number of solutions on a number of problems. So That's a slightly different way to operate than the more sort of happy and connecting activity, but a more focused one on specific problems.
And so I guess that's where you put your 80% of people that are working in Transform, right? To make sure that they are experimenting like hell
Exactly.
in the arenas within the boundaries you've defined. Now, one thing always pops up in this space of ecosystems is IP. How do you deal with IP?
Well, it's a great question, and I guess it's a question that will have different answers depending on the context and the industry. But my key point here is that there's a trade-off to be made between IP ownership and time to market at the end of the day. And that trade-off can be different by industry, but it is always a trade-off to be made, right? If you insist on having IP ownership, you usually have a 6 months plus negotiation with your partners outside on the topic. If you're in industry where IP ownership is very essential and you can spare the 6 months, then fair enough. In other industries or other categories, speed is the way to win, and therefore maybe IP ownership is less of interest to you.
I like the two-dimensional friction of ownership versus speed. And my experience indeed is that those companies that are too, what's the word, too, there's a word I want to use, but I cannot use it on this podcast. They're too restrictive around ownership. They will go nowhere in this new world where ecosystems need to be the norm to go and, as you started saying, to create those integrated solutions that your consumers want and the world needs. Okay, I want to move into the next element that I know you have an incredible amount of passion for. That is, how do you incorporate digitalization into an old industry company like yours? That is a perennial problem for old industry manufacturing companies. How have you dealt with that and really maximize the value and potential that digital transformation really offers?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing topic, and I'm excited about it because I think it offers a lot of opportunities, both on the innovation side and on the capability side as well. So it's a great way to both perform and transform. Um, my my recognition at this stage is that it's moving from it will be nice to think about it to a burning platform. So I guess for many R&D leaders, the topic of how do I digitalize my function and the way we do our basic day-to-day work is becoming a critical topic. And I see several, at least three different parts of this topic. One is on managing information. So I guess my recommendation would be, first of all, start with having a PLM process. So make sure you have a holistic information management for your product information. That will accelerate innovation. It will bring together all the function involved in innovation earlier in the process, so you'll get better and more robust product as a result. You can also use data in this space to get some insight into what works well in your product, in your formulation. Sometimes artificial intelligence will be able to pull out learnings that you won't be able to generate yourself over a large portfolio, for example. So that's one topic. I guess the other one that I see nowadays is the incredible capabilities coming from data analytics, which can take scientific data and extract insights from it. They can capture knowledge from your organization and transform it into an expert system that at least does some of the basic work for you. And this piece of work can become the basis for what I call in silico product development. So basically, trying to make computers work for you by doing some of the development work directly. For example, in packaging development, in Danone over the past 10 years, we have reduced the cost and time of each packaging iteration by a ratio of probably 10 to 20. And this has allowed us to do innovation that was incredibly complex and to keep innovating at the right speed. But there are other challenges still to do on formulation, for example, which is less easy to simulate. So these three pieces of information management, data analytics, and in silico development, I think are three, in my mind, three key elements of digitalizing the R&D function.
It's impressive how you have embraced and embedded those capabilities already in your organization. Now, the point that I wanted to get to here then is it's great, these technologies are there, you're able to use it. How did you go about this, people wise? I mean, did you just tell a food scientist, well, I now want you to become a data expert? Or how did you manage that from an organizational viewpoint? Because in the end, you can have all these capabilities, but it's the people that need to, do what you just did as a leader, or wanted that your organization to do as a leader, which is, embrace and embed it into the daily operation.
No, and absolutely, and this is why it's the challenge for digitalization is going to be more an organizational and skill set one than a technology one. So I suspect that that's going to be, as you said yourself, the finding the right mix between organization and skill set to make sure that you extract value from the digitalization will be the challenge. So some of the things we've done in the past in Danone was to first of all recruit some real experts from outside on simulation, for example, and also transform some people or train some people that were packaging experts to give them an understanding of data analytics and AI. And you also need your packaging experts to remain there, because at the end of the day, it's the combination of these elements of these various expertise that really bring value, right? If you don't have the packaging experts to put together the algorithm, your analytics stuff will not work out well. So
So
need
you create by default, not by default, I guess, intentionally somehow, a much more diverse organization, right? And
yeah,
you need to make sure that that also offers career potential for the different kinds of people other than food chemists that you may have had 15, 20 years ago. Is that correct?
that's correct. So it's one of the challenge, and I think there are points in this reflection when you need to think about what you want to keep internally and what you might want to outsource. So typically in Danone, we kept a lot of the algorithm development internal, but all the work that needs to be done on the hardware, getting the right servers and all of this, we actually outsource this. So you have to make that choice about which piece of the value chain are better working inside versus which one actually works better outside. But you're right; it's a continuum. It's a set of expertise that you bring together that really deliver the full potential.
That's very insightful. Really, it is. Continuing the insights, I want to move on to the core topic of this series, which is learning to lead innovation, lessons from people like you that have been around for some time. Not as long as I've been around, but you've been around for some time. Can you speak to your leadership journey with this? The times have changed since you were a young kid getting into Danone. Or young new hire, let's call it like that. How have you developed? How have you grown? What have been the needs and the traits that you have exhibited to make you so successful?
Well, I guess the biggest, first of all, I think it's important to keep growing as a leader and to stay humble, in the face of transformation, because you see the amount of change that we go through in a career. It basically means that you very often don't know what you will need to know soon afterwards. So it's good to stay humble. I guess the question I kept asking myself throughout my career was, how do I bring value to my organization? And the answer changed fairly significantly, maybe 10, 15 years ago, from more of controlling, and making sure that everything was working well and checking every detail, which worked well at the start of my career, towards more of an enabling and supportive leadership, where you actually try to help the organization function without you by providing the right framework and the sense of direction as to what you're trying to achieve and how you want it achieved. And you have to create this. The bigger the organization, the more you make it. You need to make it work without you at the end of the day, right? So you need to provide people with the right framework to make choices day in day out across all the entire organization, because these decisions cannot all come back to the top.
I love the way you talk this. You started to express that you need to continuously learn. You talked about humility, which I love. And then also about sort of what I call sometimes generative leadership or inverted leadership. It's indeed not about telling people what to do anymore, this command and control that you were referring to, because frankly, you don't know what the world's going to look like in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. So you need to go and focus much more on enabling your organization and engaging your organization into the exciting innovation team sport, right?
Yeah.
And then create those. Remember the arenas that we talked earlier and the boundaries, so that you guide them and guard them into that experimentation game. That's brilliant. Thank you. Last thought, I wanted to go and ask you, what would be your advice to succeed in a balanced life to people that are just starting, where you and I started 35 and maybe 25 years ago?
But we could write a book around this one.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. No, I guess the kind of advice I'm trying to give to people who are starting their career now is one of them is about making sure that you learn on a regular basis, right? So you have to. One of the things I do, for example, every 6 months, I stop a couple hours and I try to list what I have learned in the past 6 months. And if I come blank, then I need to change job. Is basically my philosophy, right? So learning is essential, but learning with a purpose and with conviction. So my advice would be to follow your own convictions, because that's the best way to have fun. It's not always easy, but it's fun. And I guess if you follow your convictions, you enjoy what you're doing, and you're learning along the way, then it's not easy to see what the path will be, but it will be great at the end of the day. So that's the kind of things that's probably the best advice I can give people nowadays. And then they will invent how to get all of that done on the way.
That was excellent. This was an unscripted podcast, folks. So these comments are very real and very sincere. Be convinced of what you're doing. Thrive, get out there, and learn some more. Because learning is something that never stops. Definitely not in the world that Christophe started to paint at the start of this podcast. With that, I think we're probably out of time. I want to thank everybody who was listening to this podcast. Hope you appreciate it. If you do, provide some feedback wherever you can. Christophe, most thanks obviously goes to you, because frankly, you've been the inspiration in this session. And so thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your friendship by now. And thank you for all your very, very valuable insights. It's been a real pleasure, this conversation.
Yeah, thanks. It's
Thank
been
you.
Great to be on board with you.
Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to our Insights podcast series, or explore the entire catalog of podcast programming from the Conference Board by visiting our website at tcb.org/podcasts. Thank you all very much. I hope we added value in today's session. I wish you all the very best and success and happiness and joy in your future. Thank you.
This has been Insights from the Conference Board.